Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by our friends at Full Press Coverage. Sap, the news about baseball has been grim recently as they are going through a protracted labor dispute. The season has now been postponed, at least the first 2 weeks or two series of the season, as the players and ownership cannot seem to come close to any sort of agreement and in their new CBA. And so that got us thinking, one, about how ridiculous baseball is and that they can't get out of their own way. And two, when the NBA's new CBA comes up in a couple of years, what is that negotiation going to look like? What sort of changes can we expect? What do we think the players are going to ask for? What do we think the owners are going to ask for? So let's just kick it off, Sap, with first, I know we're a basketball podcast, but I want to hear your opinion on what's going on with baseball right now. And then second, some of the sort of thoughts you have about the impending CBA in the NBA in a few years.
Yeah, the NBA CBA expires at the end of the 23-24 season, so we still have a few years left for that. But I think Adam Silver, who's by far the best commissioner in all of sports, I don't even think it's close. I'm sure he's already started this process of making sure that there's not going to be a work stoppage. Now, there was a work stoppage in basketball in the 98-99 season. That was a shortened season. San Antonio won the championship. And then in 2011, 2012, they only played 66 games instead of 82 in the Heat with LeBron, Wade, and Bosh won the title that year. So, every 12 or 13 years, we've had a labor issue in the NBA. Yeah, I hope it's not one of those, questions you get on an IQ test, like when's the next time this is going to happen? Like it would kind of fit into when this CBA expires. So hopefully that doesn't happen. And I think you have the right commissioner in there, and Commissioner Silver, who, again, he's far ahead of the other three commissioners, as much by default as anything. But I think he does a fabulous job. He threads the line perfectly, Jet, because he has a good relationship with the players, but he also can go to the players and say, look, I don't want you guys kneeling during the national anthem. And the players will buy into that. That's leadership, right? Because he'll give back some other things to the players. I think he also has a good relationship with the owners. Heck, he was able to force Donald Sterling out, which, the NFL isn't able to do with some of their hideous owners, whether it be in Washington or in Houston or wherever else. So I think he has that ability. As far as the baseball part of it, they seem to be fighting over not much, right? I mean, it's like they're trying to see, look, baseball's never going to have a salary cap, which the other three sports have. Hockey has the strictest salary cap.
Yeah.
Basketball, because of the bird rule, you can kind of circumvent it. I mean, look at the Warriors. They just pay their guys whatever they want. And they're able to, exceed whatever the salary cap is and pay whatever penalties. Football, you can kind of navigate it because it's not guaranteed. So baseball, though, that's the big problem, is the haves and the have-nots. So, you've got the major market teams who can spend whatever they want. And then you've got small market teams like Pittsburgh and Kansas City and whatever else that'll have a $50 million payroll. And it just doesn't seem like that's good for the sport, right? I mean, how can you have a discrepancy of 500% difference between the lowest payroll and the highest payroll? That just doesn't work. So we'll see what happens with that. But I think basketball, what they're going to need to do, Jet, is in this next collective bargaining agreement is address some issues with the sport itself. And I think baseball's trying to do that, right? With a pitch clock.
Yeah, the players don't want to.
Right. In baseball, that's the problem, because they have no relationship. Like it's a poor relationship between the players and the owners. And then the commissioner, to me, Rob Manfred's a boob. So, like, there's nothing going on.
He's been a disaster. Yeah, he's been a disaster.
He makes Roger Goodell's a better commissioner, because at least football, there's no work stoppage, and the money is just flowing in. And look, money's flowing in all these sports. Basketball's a $10 billion a year industry, so they should be okay. Baseball's like 11, 12 billion. Football's 18 billion. These sports leagues make a ton of money, so that's not the issue. It's how you divvy it up. So with baseball, they're looking at, okay, let's implement a pitch clock to speed up the game, maybe ban the shift, because that is just treacherous to watch. 40% of all plate appearances end in a strikeout, walk, or home run, which is no action. universal DH, which I like. Go ahead, do it. Whatever. Maybe expand the playoffs to 6 teams in each league. Whatever you need to do, get it done. Basketball is more likely to have Adam Silver, the players, the owners get together and hash these things out. And I think the biggest issue I have, Jet, is not necessarily the way the game is played. I mean, we could sit here and say the 3-point shot is too much, right? It's become almost a laughing stock that, half the shots by some franchises are 3-pointers.
Yep.
How can you legislate that? What do you do? Widen the court, make it, take away the corner 3, and then Grant Williams is out of a job.
Yes.
So pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. He and PJ Tucker would be, deemed irrelevant. Do you just have the top of the key and the wings, and Steph Curry would still shoot from there? That's a different thing. The problem I have, and I think that the people are going to push back a little bit of, is what we saw this year with James Harden going from Houston, eating his way out of Houston, 15 months ago, forcing a trade to Brooklyn. And then after not liking it there, forcing a trade from Brooklyn to Philadelphia. And Ben Simmons claiming he had mental health issues, which maybe did, maybe didn't, and not playing one game with Philadelphia. And Kyrie Irving not getting vaccinated, playing only road games. And that is a turnoff to fans. It leaves the regular season irrelevant, which, you can't have that. What makes football great is that every Sunday those games mean something. The NBA, although this year it's going to be fun down the stretch because the Eastern Conference is so close that those final 6 weeks are going to be fascinating to watch. But for the most part, okay, this guy's playing 48 games this year. He'll be ready for the playoffs. That's a turnoff. And I think they have to try to address that. How they do that, I don't know.
Right. Well, the ways you do that is it's complicated because, you try to limit as much as you can the resting of players
Right.
and the load management, which is virtually impossible to legislate because teams will just say, oh, well, it's a nagging injury. We don't want to risk, making it worse. And it's kind of hard to disprove that, unless the league wants to come in with their own independent doctors to, all 30 franchises and evaluate every player on the team on a game-to-game basis. That's not realistic. No. And then you could also say, okay, well, to make the regular season more meaningful, we could have a shorter schedule, but that means a lot less money for the players and the owners. And so that's not going to happen. So there's really no easy answer to it other than I think I flowed this in the past, Sap, that you tied bonuses and all NBA things and awards to the amount of games you play. And you're not eligible to be, an all-star or an all-NBA player or an MVP or an all-defensive player unless you meet a certain threshold of games played. I think that could potentially impact how much players want to rest or not is, if you tie it to what their awards and, to their financials, because if you make all-NBA teams, or all-star teams, that directly impacts how much you get paid. And so if you say, you need to play X amount of games to qualify for that, I think you would see a change in how many players are able to suddenly play more games. That's just a brief thought. Obviously they can't do that right now. They'd have to put it into the CBA. So that would have to be, something that would occur in the next round of the negotiations. But that's one way I think the NBA could think of combating it, Sap. It's sort of the only good idea I have in terms of that.
Well, no, it makes sense. So you would have to play, say, 60 games to qualify for first, second, or third All-NBA or Defensive Player of the Year or MVP or bonuses, which are tied into if you make first, second, or third team All-NBA. I think that's a viable thing. So, players, first of all, if you miss 30 games, in all likelihood, you're not going to be first, second, or third team All-NBA. Maybe you have to ratchet up a little more, 64
LeBron
games
has.
or whatever. LeBron has, yeah. I mean, the rules almost don't apply to him. And there's some good of that and there's some bad of that. I mean, he's already talking about maybe going to Cleveland and play with his son. I mean, no other player could say that and get away with it. He can. Now, he's going to have a lot of pushback by the LeBron haters. I get that. But yeah, so can you make a guy ineligible for the playoffs that he's doesn't play enough games? Then it really gets murky.
It's bad for the league.
Then it's bad for the league. It's like this year, Kevin Durant probably wouldn't have played enough games to qualify for the playoffs. Well, I know I want to see Kevin Durant in the postseason. Whether he played 30, 40, 50, or 60 games in the regular season, I want to see him out there in the postseason because
Of course,
he's
yeah. And
an
the league
incredible
wants
player.
it, and they're all nationally televised games when it gets to the postseason.
Exactly.
So,
and again,
you need those guys.
And it's different in football. Like the great quarterbacks aren't sitting out half the season. And,
Right.
like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes aren't sitting out half the season, and the team, they're not going to make the playoffs. Like, I mean, you take Rodgers out of Green Bay, they're a 7-win team. They don't make the playoffs. They just show up in the postseason, and he'll shit his pants in the postseason anyway.
Yeah,
so but you get my point, right? I mean, in the NBA, it's different. It's like, okay, let's have load management. I mean, look, Kawhi 3 years ago, right? What did he played 60 out of 82 games, and he was fresh as all hell in the postseason, and they won the championship. We may
and
see
that's
that
why I
this year.
said it has to be a league rule, because the teams are always going to try to cater to the players and the star players because you're trying to attract them. So teams aren't going to realistically tie players' money in their contract to the amount of games they play, because that's going to alienate the player. You're trying to sign them in free agency. You don't want to give them one team will just turn around and say, oh yeah, you can play one game. We'll give you, $100 million. Doesn't matter to us.
Yeah, Steve Ballmer in the Clippers is worth $45 billion. What does he care?
Right.
He'll sign everybody.
The teams won't do it unless they have, unmitigated rights to the player. Like, okay, for a rookie extension, when the Sixers extended Joel Embiid off of his rookie deal, he was restricted. Nobody else had access to try to sign him. So they could put in caveats. We need, here's some health caveats. You need to play X amount of games to earn this amount of money. I'm sure the Pelicans will try to do something similar with Zion Williamson when those negotiations start this offseason. But in general, when you're talking about free agents and when guys like Kevin Durant become a free agent, teams aren't going to say, hey, Kevin, we'd love to have you here, but we're gonna tie your money to the amount of games you're willing to play. Just not going to happen. So it's something a league needs to mandate and say, you will not, we as a league are saying you cannot earn this honor or this bonus money unless you meet this threshold of games played. It's one way to potentially combat it. Honestly, a guy like Kevin Durant or LeBron James, who's made $1 million all NBA teams, stuff like that, may not give a shit. They might just say, okay, whatever.
They've got money coming in from 19 different places. I mean, LeBron's a billionaire. He's got like 12 different businesses and sneaker deals. And so, I mean, the game is just, he's kind of there doing it. It's not like the only way he earns his living. It's actually only a fraction of it. And like you said about Durant, remember Durant had the Achilles at the end of 2019, was a free agent. Brooklyn signed him knowing he wasn't going to play that year.
Right.
You basically
to a super max contract. Yeah.
So you knew you were going to get, exactly. You were going to get 3 years and you have to pay for 4, but he's worth it. He's, Kevin freaking Durant. So I mean that's the thing. Like, I like the fact that the league is fascinating because of the personalities, right? But there comes a point where it just, maybe the average fan is turned off a little bit. And I think it's a turnoff also that, you go into a game, let's say, okay, you go in a TD Garden and husband, wife, 2 kids, by the time you buy the tickets and you park and you eat and it's $500 and you're going to want to watch the 76ers come in because your kid loves James Harden and he doesn't play. I mean, that's a turnoff, You get that a little bit with baseball, but you can understand that with baseball, but there's also more opportunities to go see a player play. They come in maybe twice during the season, or if you're in the same division, 3 times.
Yeah, it's more of a thing with pitchers. With
pitchers,
you're very likely to miss a star pitcher.
Which is fine. You understand that because they pitch once every 5 days. I mean, look, I went down to New York one year to see Barry Bonds play, and he was hurt. So I saw the Giants without Barry Bonds, but I got to see him other times. Yeah, exactly.
JT Snow.
I got to see JT Snow, who got some Hall of Fame votes, and Bonds is not in the Hall of Fame. Which I just want to rant about baseball. One other thing that makes baseball frustrating.
No, I think it's good to rant about it right now because that's why we're talking about it.
Well, because now here's an issue with baseball. Every other sport, the star players get to express themselves and play and contribute, right? If you go watch Brady and Rodgers and Mahomes, you're going to see them do some things. They may not play great, but they're going to throw the football. They're going to be there, right? You're going to see them fail or succeed. In baseball, it's different. The same thing in basketball. You see the Lakers come in and LeBron's going to put up 36, or maybe he's going to have an off night, but whatever. You're going to see him on the court doing things. In baseball, I remember, again, Barry Bonds is my favorite athlete of all time. So I would get the baseball package when he was playing on the Giants. They didn't have it when he was on the Pirates, but with the Giants, I'd get the baseball package. So at 10 o'clock at night, I'm sitting there watching the San Francisco Giants play. And the first time he gets up, they pitch around him. Okay, because there's a guy on base, there's 2 outs, and he's too good, so we got to pitch around him. Okay, so I got to sit around 45 minutes. He comes up a second time. There's a guy on second base, intentional walk. All right, so now we're at midnight. He's 0 for 0 with 2 walks. He's the best player, in my opinion, in the history of the sport, and we haven't seen him do a damn thing because the nature of the game allows you to pitch around guys. Whereas in other sports, you get to really enjoy Steph Curry putting up 12 3-pointers. Now, you may not make them all, or you may miss half of them or whatever, but at least you get to see them perform. In baseball, this is norm. Like I saw Mike Trout, a 3-game series at Fenway Park a couple of years ago. As great as he is, he went 1 for 12, 3 walks, and had like 4 balls hit to him in center field. So if you had only seen those 3 games, you'd walk away and say, this is the best player in baseball. And that's a big problem with that sport. Basketball is just that sometimes the guys aren't there, right? So, you want to see those star players. And maybe you want to blame Greg Popovich for this because he was really the first guy that had load management. We remember that Duncan and Ginobili and Parker and Kawhi certainly learned load management from Pop. And those guys would play 68 games in an 82-game schedule, and then they would be at their best in the postseason. But as great as Tim Duncan was he selling a lot of tickets? I mean, I think he's one of the 10 greatest players in the history of the sport. I don't know a lot of kids that was begging their parents to go see Tim Duncan play. As great as he was, but they're begging their parents to go see Ja Morant and Steph Curry and LeBron and Kevin Durant and Kyrie, pick all the stars. So that's kind of a problem. But again, as Pop would say, don't tell me how to coach my team. I want to have these guys ready. It's a very, very difficult thing. And I think this is something the league's going to have to deal with in the new CBA as much as anything else, because the money's there. They'll figure out the money, but the game, you want to protect the game. And, one of my favorite sayings is pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. That's something you got to watch out for.
That's what Mark Cuban said about the NFL. I don't think that prediction has gone the way he thought it was so far.
No, they just keep getting fed and fed and fed. I mean, that league can't fail. I mean, I could be the commissioner, it would work. I could own a team and somehow would screw it up. I mean, it's just. But that's
the most popular product in the country. Yeah, it can't fail.
What is it? 75 of the top 100 TV shows were football games last year. Just think about that, because it's live. You have to watch it when you watch it, and that's great.
It's a perpetual motion machine at this point. You can't do anything to screw it up.
Yep. And basketball's a great sport, but again, okay, you tune in tonight and you find out, well, LeBron's sitting out. It's like, okay, I want to watch the Lakers tonight, and the best player isn't playing. That's kind of a turnoff. You don't see that in football generally. You see the stars.
Yeah, it's just another point to your baseball conversation. I actually saw this on Twitter the other day. I forget who wrote it, but I'm stealing it. Just in terms of okay, who's the best player in baseball right now? The current best player in baseball, Sap.
I would say it's Mike Trout still. Okay. He's had some injuries the last couple of years.
I agree with
Betts, whatever. Pick one of those 2 guys.
Mike Trout.
Yeah.
1.9 million Instagram followers. Okay, that seems pretty good. Tyler Hero, 2.3 million Instagram followers.
Right.
Alex Caruso, not far behind Mike Trout with 1.6 million. Alex Caruso, fun player. He is a 7th or 8th man on a basketball team, and he only has 300,000 less followers than the best player in baseball, Tyler Hero, who good player, comes off the bench, has 2.3 million followers to Mike Trout's 1.9 million followers.
Yeah, no, exactly.
That's not good for baseball.
No, when the best player in the sport, he's not necessarily the biggest star because he's so boring and quiet, and he's sensational. That's why I really want to see Fernando Tatis elevate to being that guy, because he feels more like an NBA player.
But who's the biggest star?
Man, I mean, Mookie Betts could be, but he's not exactly a great personality. Now he's a joy to watch because he's great and he's got a big smile and he's playing for a big brand with the Dodgers. You're right. I mean, Jeter was that guy probably with the Yankees, but he wasn't exactly the life of the. You can get into a bunch of stuff with Derek Jeter. I mean, the woman he played for the Yankees and he was,
just
with
a
the
quick
women
Google,
and everything.
Mike Trout has the most Instagram followers of any MLB player, and it's
less than
1.9
Tyler
million.
Hero.
And it's less than Tyler Hero.
Yeah. What does LeBron have? Like 82 million? Like, I mean, he's the biggest guy in the NBA. So forget the soccer players, Ronaldo, Messi.
113 million.
For LeBron, right. So it's 60 times more than his comp in baseball. Yeah, baseball's in a weird spot. And look, they still create a lot of money because of the cable TV money, right? I mean, like the Yankees bring in, I believe, $400 million a year from the Yes Network. The Red Sox bring in like $180 million a year from NESN. So that, in addition to selling 2.5 million tickets and hot dogs and beers and parking and shirts, the Red Sox gross about $600 million a year.
How about Bronny James, his son, 6.1 million followers on Instagram.
He's got 3 times the Instagram followers that Mike Trout has, and he's a junior in high school who might be a second-round pick. It's incredible. No. See, that's where basketball is great. They know how to build that brand because, again, as I said, baseball players, you can go to a game and you walk away and go, yeah, Mike Trout's great, but he went 0 for 4, struck out twice, and caught one.
Well, Sap, you know who the good basketball players are coming out in the draft, when they're in high school still. We know about a lot of these guys because you see their highlights on YouTube. Who the hell knows who the top baseball prospects are? You might hear about one every couple of years. Usually it's a pitcher who dominates the NCAA tournament, like Steven Strasburg.
Right, or Ken Griffey Jr. I mean, we knew about him.
But that was
dad. That was
30+ years ago.
Yeah, that was 1988 or whenever. Yeah, it was, I could go back all the way. I mean, Bonds wasn't even the highest drafted guy on his college team at Arizona State. Oda B. McDowell was drafted ahead of Barry Bonds.
We could talk all day about why basketball is far superior in terms of marketing than baseball. God, yeah. I mean, without a doubt. But in terms of the rest of the conversation, Sap, about the CBA and what else they can do, obviously, I agree with you. The biggest thing they need to address is, trying to get players to play the games more.
Yep.
There's no easy answer to it. That's my suggestion, like I said, is try to tie it as much as you can to the bonus money and the all NBA teams, though that all NBA teams only affects, 15 players.
Right.
So I don't know how impactful that would necessarily be. And in terms of other things that the league needs to change, I don't love the 3-point shooting. I don't know there's much you can do about it. I'd like to see them expand the court. You'd be talking about, billions of dollars in renovations to arenas that some owners and team people, arenas are owned by, conglomerates who don't even have anything to do with the team. So they may not be willing to do that too. So I think it would be a good change. I don't think it's a realistic thing that's going to happen. In terms of the other stuff in game, they made some great changes this year. You saw it last night in the Celtics game. The foul where the offensive player jumps into the defensive player is now an offensive foul, as opposed to last, for the last 10 years, it's been a defensive foul. That was a great change because it was killing the pace of some of these games. Replay needs to be addressed. We've talked about this before too, Sap, right? I think 90 seconds you have. If you can't figure something else out, call in the court stands. These 5-minute, especially these national TV games, Sap, these 5-minute replays kill the game. Just kill it.
Well, that happened the other night in the Lakers game. The last 27 seconds took 12 minutes to play.
You can't have it.
No, it's just because the pace of basketball is great. That's generally, if you go to a game or you watch it on TV, it generally doesn't go more than 2.5 hours, which is excellent. That's a good product, right? I mean, because football's about 3:05. Baseball's about 3:10, although it just seems longer because the pace is so damn slow. Hockey and basketball have good pace to it.
Right, and occasionally you'll catch the 4.5 hour baseball game, which is
horrific. Is every Sunday night game between the Red Sox and Yankees. It's just book it. The game's not ending till midnight at the earliest. So that's what makes basketball great. It's a great sport. It translates to TV really well. So all of that stuff is good. I just think they need to tighten up some things. We don't want to start turning off fans
Right. The
And then
replay, you think the replay needs to be addressed a little bit in terms
absolutely.
of
Absolutely. Yeah.
faster.
If you can't figure it out in 90 seconds, then go with the original call. Oh, you should be able to figure it out in 90
and
seconds.
That's we talked about this before, right? Like when the ball goes off like the thread of somebody's shorts.
Right.
It's like you don't need a microscope. Just please, 90 seconds is more than enough. From the time they just should put a timer on in the stadium.
Yeah.
From the time they put the headsets on.
Yep.
You have 90 seconds to figure it out, or otherwise the call on the court stands. I don't think fans would have a problem with that either.
No one wants to sit around.
God, it's terrible, especially at the end of games. It's terrible.
Yeah, no, it just slows everything down. But yeah, that the replay has to be addressed. The 3-point shot, I mean, that's going to be a tough one because you can't expand the court because of the arenas. You're right, and then teams aren't going to want to give up those seats, those front row seats that go for $2,500. So that's a whole thing. Unless you take away the corner three. But then the players may push back on that. Although, again, Adam Silver is such a good leader that, if he takes that away, he'll give them something else. I mean, he's got a great relationship with the players. I mean, look at the best player in the history of football. Tom Brady, had a contentious relationship with Goodell, the commissioner, who suspended him.
I'm pretty sure he despises Roger Goodell. Tom Brady.
Right. And LeBron, great relationship with Adam Silver. I believe
has
Jordan
him on speed dial, probably.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think Jordan had a good relationship with David Stern. So, and the commissioners are smart enough to know that that's the most important guy in the league.
I don't think Rob Manfred even knows who Mike Trout is.
Doesn't even know. No, he was practicing his golf swing the other day at a press conference. I mean, he actually is the worst commissioner in sports, which is saying much. Goodell, again, because they make so much money, you can't put him there. And Gary Bateman, I mean, hockey's kind of grown a little bit. They get a nice national TV contract, so.
He's had a rough early tenure, but he's done better. Yeah,
he's done okay.
Hockey.
Adam Silver's in a class by himself. And the other thing is Adam Silver and I share the same birthday, April 25th.
Oh, well, that's obviously the connection. The cherry on top.
That's the main connection.
Other things, Sap, the other thing I think of is like the take foul. A lot of people talk about where you stop fast breaks, but it's not a clear path foul. That I think they will legislate that out. They can do that without a CBA, just like they did. They can change that. The competition committee can change that. I hope they don't in the new CBA put in that mid-season tournament that Adam Silver seems to really like. I don't know. He seems, and I agree with you, he's the best commissioner in sports by a country mile, but the only person who seems to want that is him.
Yeah, I still don't even know what the benefit of that would be. Like I keep looking at it's not something. I mean, this play-in tournament's kind of grown on me in the to get the final two teams into the postseason. Right. So you get 7 through 10. I mean, or you could go the other way and just have 6 teams make the playoffs. The first 2 teams get a bye, and then 3 plays 6 and 4 plays 5 and a best of 3 or best of 5. And you go from there, you shorten the playoffs a little bit, but that, that's not going to happen because that's where you make money selling, tickets for the playoffs and also getting ratings for the playoffs. So those are a lot of things that could definitely happen. I think the big part of it is going to be just making sure that everyone realizes that as great as the game is and as profitable it is, and again, a $10 billion industry, that's pretty damn good. Let's not take it too much for granted. And let's try to make the one thing that, you always look at a guy like Michael Jordan, the guy never missed games. Like the guy played 81, 82 games every year. Karl Malone, as much as I'm not a big fan of his, I believe missed like 24 games in his entire career. Same thing with John Stockton. I mean, they would, if you went to see the Utah Jazz play, you're going to see those 2 guys play. And that's important. That's, I don't want to go see Hamlet with the understudy. I want to see Hamlet with Ray Fiennes, which I saw 25 years ago on Broadway. 3 rows behind Donald Trump.
Oh, did he enjoy the show?
He did. Yeah, I don't know if he understood it. The Hamlet's not the easiest thing to take in, but he was with Marla Maples. And you know what? He was very, very good with the people that were there signing autographs and the people that sat him down. I think the ushers he gave like $100 bill to. So, that's kind of what he is, a showman. But yeah, Ray Fiennes as a Hamlet won the Tony Award, sensational. But when I went to New York to see it, I wanted to make sure he was in it, not the understudy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that the NBA product is really good right now. There's obviously always room for improvement. And I think some of those, changes that we talked about could definitely help. Last thing I want to say is in the new CBA, I would really like to see them revert back to having high school seniors be eligible to come out and play in the NBA. I don't see any reason why if you're good enough to be drafted that you should have to play a year of college or a year in the G League or a year abroad. I mean, some of the best players in the history of the league have come straight out of high school. I would like to see the NBA players, specifically LeBron, champion that a little bit more, considering that was his path. Yep. I don't see why they're making them wait, especially because we've seen in sports, you're one injury away from it being a career-ending injury, and that's just not right that a player, who could provide for his family for generations, could possibly suffer one of those types of injuries and never be drafted because of what seems to be an arbitrary rule.
Yeah, and LeBron could play with his son 1 year earlier.
Yeah, because for some reason somebody would still draft him just so they could get LeBron on their team, not because the kid is, a franchise-changing talent.
No, 1 year LeBron does mean a lot to a franchise, though.
Yeah, certainly does. So that's the last thing I can think of that I'd really like to see change, and I hope the league addresses that, when their CBA comes up. But by the time the NBA CBA comes up, we still might not have baseball at this rate.
I think they'll come back in May. I mean, they're not that far apart on certain things, but we know how stubborn both the players and owners can be in that league. They just don't give in.
Stupid, Sap. It's just like they're driving a stake further and further to the heart of their sport. Like, do they genuinely not care about acquiring new fans?
No.
Or all they have existing diehard fans that have been fans of baseball for 50 plus years. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, they're all dying.
They're not going anywhere. Yeah. And they haven't been able to pick up new fans since then. Like they think it's just going to be fine. Casual fans aren't. It's out of sight, out of mind with baseball.
Here's the thing, Jet. 2 years ago during the pandemic, they had a real opportunity to seize the moment. The NBA was off for 4.5 months. The NHL was off. Football wasn't coming back till the normal part of the season that it does. And football was fortunate. The pandemic happened in March. So by September, they were able to play. Baseball really should have been back on the field July 1. Instead, they didn't come back till August 1st because they were fighting over dollars and cents. They could have had the stage unto themselves in July. Come back in July, people were starving for sports, for content, right? Instead, they just waited till August, and by then, the NBA and the NHL was coming back. And football.
No, they could have acquired a ton of new fans.
Right.
A ton of
them. I mean, wasn't ESPN showing Korean baseball?
Yes.
Like at 5:30 in the morning,
rodeo.
People were watching it. And rodeo, people were just dying for content. If you come back in July, you have a 90-game season, and you get people, tuned in and introduce it to more fans. Instead, we'll wait till August because the owners didn't want to come back because they looked at it as, well, we'll pay the players for 60 games. We still get our national TV money and our local TV money. And look, this is why a lot of these small markets want this lockout to be a month long, because April's the worst month in terms of ticket sales. It's cold in the Northeast. You're not selling as much beer, but you still got to pay the players. So if you miss the first month, so be it.
Yeah. They just don't have anything together as far as I'm concerned. But that's going to do it for us here, Sap, at the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Make sure you find the podcast wherever podcasts are found, and make sure you check out our social medias for great polls and content and other stuff like that at JohnSap25, JOHNSAP25, and at Jet Stryer. And the YouTube version of the show is youtube.com/Jet Stryer. So we will be back next week with a new podcast for everybody, and we'll talk to y'all later. See ya.